Welcome to the Full Dive Gaming Podcast, bringing you a weekly dive of all the news, discussion, and condensed nerd talk you need for virtual reality gaming. This podcast is brought to you by Asterion Products, a top-selling company on Amazon, designing revolutionary products for virtual reality, augmented reality, and everything else gamer you need. I'm Jay Bratt, a VR YouTuber, streamer, and your host for tonight's podcast.
I'm Adam Charlton, a software developer who's in love with game design and VR.
And I'm Kayleighs, a VR artist and musician. I'm not a generally awesome person.
You're supposed to read it line for line, Kayleigh. Go ahead, Adam.
Our podcast is here to keep you up to date in the VR realm. We answer questions from our communities, followed by some of the latest and greatest VR news. And then we discuss the games that we've been playing recently and VR concepts from them.
If you haven't seen our YouTube channel, we are all sitting here in VR, interacting as if we are really here together in one room. So check out the channel if you want to see us and our lovely virtual faces.
Let's jump right into the Q&A. Jay, what's our first question?
Well, we got a great question from Just Rez, our newest Discord member, and he asked the question, if you guys were to make a game for VR, have complete control over it, what would it include and what would be the objective, style, and genre? Adam, aren't you making a VR game already?
I am. I'm making a VR game in my free time. It's pretty slow going. As it turns out, games are kind of hard to make. But I am making some games in my free time, and it is a blast. One of the things that I love most about VR is how much interaction you can have in the world. So the game that I'm making, it almost doesn't matter the premise, as long as you can fully interact with everything in this really interesting and unique environment. So I suppose that that's the number one thing that I'm including, and from all the games that we've talked about and learned about, is that you can make a good game from basically any premise as long as it really fits the VR medium, being able to interact with interesting and clever ways all your environment. So that's what I'm focusing on in my game. Hopefully that's something you guys enjoy playing, right, when I finally get around to finishing it. But what about the two of you? What kind of game, if you just had free reign to make whatever you wanted, what kind of game would you make?
So I think I'd probably want to make something that was kind of fantastical. I kind of imagine, my like signature aesthetic, but not really. I kind of imagine it to be very like a storytelling experience, and where the gaming side of it would be more like where I've always loved this idea that you'd be able to have this kind of eternal game. So it's kind of like updated so as you go along. So it would be so cool to be like the main character in some sort of fantastical storyline, like a bit like, even if it's like a Stranger Things-esque storyline or anything like that, but you're like the main character and it doesn't really feel like a game so much. I kind of would love to make a game that doesn't feel like a game. It's almost like you're stepping into another world and playing out that story. But the way that I'd want the immersion to work would be like, say if like every time you went into it, like depending on your actions, the following sequences would change. So and that inspiration, it sounds really complicated, but it's basically because I have really vivid dreams basically, and every time I go to sleep, the dream carries on from last night's dream, and it's this continuous story. I think that as far back I can remember, it's probably like as young as like 5. My dreams don't go away. I don't forget them. So I would love to make a sort of continuous game that kind of adopted that sort of idea that every time you went back into it, it carried on from where you left off, but in a more of like a spontaneous way, rather than it being like I don't know how that would happen, because that would mean like some people would have to be working on it like constantly updating. And I don't mean like individual for that individual person necessarily, but just like, I don't know, it feels more like you're discovering the storyline rather than it being there and then you're just falling into exactly what you expect the person to do. I don't know. That's kind of, it sounds really extensive, but that's kind of been sitting in the back of my mind that if I did know how to make a game, it would be something like that.
That's awesome. I used to have dreams like that sometimes as a kid where it like continue, but then adulthood and the real world crushed my spirit. Now I don't really dream anymore ever. I like that. I would say a little bit of both of what you said here. Adam, I would love to see a game where you can interact with like everything like it's real life. Like and it stays. I can grab a pen and draw on something and it like stays there, unless someone comes along and cleans it up. But I would love a game, and this isn't just VR, I would love a game that's actually truly choice-based and actually sticks with it. It's not, oh, they're going to talk to me a little differently now, or, oh, I'm going to have one of 3 different endings. I know that's a huge undertaking. That's probably not going to happen in our lifetimes, but I would like games that are kind of like real life where you make a choice and it can send you down a completely different path in life than if you had made a different choice. I think the Deus Ex series tried to do a little bit of that with their games, and they try to like make it feel like your choices really make a difference. But ultimately, you're always following a few different paths, and it's a programmer's nightmare to make something where there's unlimited paths. But it would be so cool to have a game where it really is like every choice you make changes what's going to happen for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
That's my dream. Just Res said I could do anything I wanted in this potential fantasy game. So that's my fantasy. I know that's virtually impossible.
Yeah,
I know you're talking about your guys' games, and I'm just seeing the hours tick by and how long it would take to make that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's even possible. It would take more than a lifetime for multiple people to come up with something like that, but it'd be so cool.
Yeah.
We had a question from Starsight, Kayleigh.
Oh, sunny or snowy? So is that sort of generally which one would you which sort of environment would you choose?
That was the whole question. So I mean, you take the question whichever way you want to.
Personally, well, I kind of have like a sob story behind my reason, but I would go sunny. No, it's purely because I actually have a skin condition and I survive purely on UV light. So I'm gonna go with sunny.
That's important. Well,
yeah, it's pretty important.
Here where I live, snow is pretty unusual, and if it sticks, it's so magical and gorgeous. But by day 2 or 3, everyone's crashing their cars to each other. Everyone hates it. So as much as I love the snow and it's whimsical, if I had to choose one or the other, it would definitely be sunny. Because snow, just once it's been around a few days, it becomes a nightmare where I live.
Yeah, definitely. Especially in the UK, like... If anyone here is given the option between sunny and anything else, I think we were going to pick sunny too for that reason.
Yeah, no, you barbarians, snowing all the way. I grew up in the mountains of the Rockies. I mean, I grew up in the snow. Always sunny, always snowy. The best, though, is when it's so snowy and sunny at the same time, where you just get snow everywhere and the bright sun above you, and it's just the perfect weather to go out and have a snowball fight.
Yeah.
Snow all the way.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Adam, there was one more question, wasn't there?
There was. So we had one more question from Crowd Nation, who asks, have you guys played Township Tale? It released on the store Quest today. It was a couple days ago when he asked the question. I remember playing the beta and it's fairly buggy and unpolished. I'd like to know if it is worth the $10 price point now. So we are going to cover this game in depth in the game section of tonight's episode. So stick around to find out what we think. But in the meantime, let's head right into the news section. Jay, what do we got for our first story?
Before we get into the news, we got to talk about who is sponsoring today's news section. If you haven't heard of them, Esports Customwear. They actually have been making jerseys, sportswear for biking forever, and they're now stepping into the esports. They specialize in custom esports jerseys. They're made to wick moisture, disperse heat, look great doing it, and we're going to be able to talk a little more in depth here in Felix because we're actually getting a whole set of full dive OKVR ones ourselves. Me, Adam, and even Destiny. You remember her from previous episodes. We're going to be able to tell you what they're really like in person, but they're sponsoring us, and I want to say thank you. Go check them out on Instagram. We'll make sure there's a link in the show notes, in the description. You can check them out. And if you need to get an order, you're looking for an esports team, you're just looking for something to wear as a streamer, they're going to make all kinds of amazing clothes that are actually going to work well for athletic games. These aren't just merch shirts like I wear that get soaked in sweat in an instant and just get disgusting on you.
Yeah, go check them out. They look incredible.
I can't wait to get my hands on it and feel what it's like. That'll be happening in just a couple weeks here. Stay tuned. Tonight we're sitting here in a certain app that is not Rec Room, which is where we usually are. But Rec Room has done something crazy. People have been wondering, when is Rec Room going to add arms? When is it going to add legs? They have added those, kind of. They dropped an update where you can now put on avatar costumes, so it's like a costume that goes onto your character, and it can have legs and arms that actually move and react by what you're doing. These costumes are sold by creators on there. So Rec Room people who already design rooms, design locations, they can now design costumes and sell them. So I've seen a couple of them on Instagram. So I saw one that looks like a really buff avatar, one that looks like a scrawny avatar, some that look like dragon costumes. These do not become part of your character, though. So if you go to a different world, it may not stick with your character. This is just a costume you can put on from place to place where you are. But it's the first step towards having full body immersion and maybe even full body wearable tracking in Rec Room. What do you think about that from the time we've spent in Rec Room? Do you think that's useful?
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting. So, how well does it model it? Because you have some games, especially a lot of shooters, tend to model just the hands because when they try and model full arms and legs, it just looks really janky, right? So, it really depends on how well do they model it. So, Jay, have you spent some time working with the arms and legs feature?
I've only briefly seen these. I've seen some videos that I watched on people of YouTube. I haven't got in and played with it myself yet. It looks like it does, I would say, as well as like VR chat does with only, your 3 points being tracked like this right now. If I move my arm, like obviously I can be pivoting my elbow in and out and it doesn't show here very well. It's looking like the same thing in Rec Room, but of course you have that cartoony aesthetic that Rec Room is known for. So I feel like it almost works a little better because I don't expect it to look as realistic as I expected in VR chat.
Okay, well, that's really interesting, but it sounds like that it's still limited. Does it sound like maybe they're doing this as a part of maybe a beta test to see how much interest there is and to roll it out to the whole program?
I believe so. I think they're going to make this. I think it's always been the eventual goal of Rec Room to go a little bit more real. But the problem is every time they add a feature, people are all, when they added ears, people are like, oh, the ears are so ugly. They're so weird looking. I hate them. And then some people like me, I just put ears on. I changed up my face to kind of match it. And I was like, okay, it's fine. It's there. I want to get more realistic. I don't want to stick with that, signature Rec Room noseless, earless style forever. I want them to look more like me. I think that this is a first step, but also this actually steps into a bigger point of what Rec Room's trying to do. They're selling these in game. So if you're a creator, you can sell an avatar you make, and if it gets really popular, you can actually get real world money for these creations you're selling through the in-game currency. And Rec Room promised that this was going to be a big thing this year. They were going to start paying their creators, and they're actually well on track to paying over $1 million to creators this year.
Whew.
Which is amazing, because like what game out there can you think of that you can get real world money through the game, not by selling some bootleg file, not by selling some separate thing outside of the game? You could actually like work in the game and make money, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's called EVE Online, but that's an entirely different monster.
EVE Online is crazy huge, but yeah, Rec Room's got the money. They did another financing round and made $100 million, which puts them at $1.25 billion in value. So Rec Room is bigger than people think it is, I think.
What do you think about all this, Kayleigh?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cool. I mean, my experience with VR chat so far, I mean, compared to obviously being in Rec Room with like less of this, I think it sounds cool. I mean, if it works as good as like, I mean, it does the job, I suppose. But I'm coming from, I don't have like loads of experience in social VR, so yeah, it sounds cool to me.
Yeah, and so I know that you have a lot of experience doing and making things in VR, like painting your creations for the soundscapes and everything.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider maybe helping make some of these costumes and selling it to the audience to try and make some good money off of this?
Well, see, people have asked me this before. Like sort of saying, "Oh, you should really get involved in stuff." I think what it is my brain is so wired for environments. I think I'd have to do a lot of practice. I think probably just went in and just started like doing that straight away. I think I don't know how comfortable I'd be with someone with me charging someone to do that, just because like I don't have a portfolio of like avatar costumes or anything like that I've made before. I think as well with like, because I paint with tilt brush, everything is like brush stroke based. I don't know like how I'd have to like play around with like making it not look so layered, I suppose, and like strokey. So I'd be interested. I just haven't delved into that character design world yet. I mean, I say yeah, I haven't really. I'm just so environment based that I think I'd be more interested in like curating a space rather than the character design, I think.
Which
That's really interesting.
but it's their environments you make are based more off of shapes than like brush strokes. So like you make a tube and you can expand and make it smaller and a different color, and then you make a circle and you can expand and make that, and then you put those together and you make a tree. You know what I mean? Like it's all shape based. So you can get pretty detailed with it, but it's definitely nothing like tilt brush. You're not going to be in there drawing with tilt brush. You're going to be like, you might be making little tiny lines to make a tree branch or something, but it's very different than tilt brush when you create environments.
Yeah, it is.
People I don't know, this might be something that in 5 years there might be people that say, what do you do for a job? And they say, oh, I create things in Rec Room. If that happens, that could be the biggest change for VR, for the gaming world. Like when someone can actually say they have a full-time profession inside of a game world that makes in-game currency pay them in real life, that's like the first step to a real VR oasis.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll get there sooner than we think.
I want to see it. Adam, what else is happening in the VR world?
So there was a really interesting study that was just made, and it's starting to show that people are starting to recognize something that the rest of us here on this podcast already know. VR is pretty awesome, and it's growing pretty quick. In 2020, VR grew faster than any other type of entertainment, including cinema, traditional video games, and music and podcasts. Unfortunately, however much we're trying to help with that. But the report continues on to predict that not only is it the fastest growing media and entertainment thing right now, but it will continue to be the leader in growing until probably about 2025, which is huge. It's averaging about 30% year over year growth right now, which is insane.
It is insane. I coming from a business background, I always question like, what are these statistics? Because like I could say 1 week we were up 30% in sales, but like the previous week we had like the power out and we couldn't sell anything for 2 days. So like sometimes the statistics can be a little skewed. I was reading about this and it's like 1.8 billion for last year, which is up from like 1.1, 1.2 billion. That's a pretty significant number.
It's not chump change.
Yeah, that is some serious money. And I think all of us who are involved in VR find that really exciting because we want there to be a good future in it. We want it to continue to grow. Something that I'm curious about, though, I feel like that number isn't really indicative of the year VR had, because between COVID, the shortage on headset sales, the less people developing games necessarily, it's interesting to me that it still grew that much even during that. Do you think it would have been different? You think it would have been bigger if last year had been a normal year?
That's an interesting question, and I'm really interested to hear what Kayleigh thinks about all this. But I think VR might have actually been helped by the pandemic, because I gotta say, one of the things that really pushed me into VR, especially in 2020, was the pandemic hit, and suddenly I couldn't go outside anywhere. I couldn't see any of my friends, but you know what I could do? I could hang out with them in VR. One of the nicest things about VR is, especially being in a program like this, it really feels like I'm chatting with you guys face to face. And that's one of the best experiences ever. And so I think that's one of those things that maybe propelled VR forward a little bit. And if it grew 30%, and that's with Steam never having the Index headset in stock or Oculus Quest 2 selling out in a month, I'm surprised what would have happened if they had it fully stocked. Whoever wanted it could get it. That might have been amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was about to say the exact same thing. I think the pandemic, well, I assume it would have helped purely, for the same reason that physically you can't do as much. You like personally, I've spent a lot less money on maybe the things that I would have done if everything was like completely normal, especially like in our lockdown where you had to still physically just stay at home. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to spend your money outside of your home. So maybe people will have been more inclined to spend their money, on the App Store. I would have assumed so.
I think the pandemic definitely helped in the way that more people got interested in VR, but it hurt it a lot in how much was available.
Yeah, supply chain.
Yeah, it became very hard to find headsets, and I do worry that a lot of those people that were interested in, now that it's kind of coming to an end, we might start to see headsets are back. You can buy them again, and people are like, I can go outside again, I can do other stuff again. They're not going to jump in, and that might hurt us a little bit. But I'm definitely interested to see what happens this year as things have gotten more normal. Does it really continue to grow like they're saying? Because like from our perspective, and I might be going down a rabbit hole, but like it's been weird lately. There's been like less news, less games, less headsets constantly releasing. I think the business side might be growing more, but like the consumer VR side, it just feels like we're kind of in a stagnant period of like, okay, what's next? What's happening? Like besides Sniper Elite VR, I can't even think of like the last big kind of game that came out. So I'm hoping that news like this means more developers get back in, more happens, because I'm a little scared right now. I feel like, are we stalling out right now? And I don't want to feel that way.
I'm going to disagree with you a bit. I don't think we're ever going to stall out in VR, especially not with 30% year-over-year growth for VR. That's an amazing number. And just, businesses will always follow where the money's at. And this is showing more than ever, there's more and more money in VR. I would expect it to keep growing, and we're going to start seeing more and more big developers release these really highly expected games in VR.
Well, obviously, I'm betting on that because this is where my career path and my life are. I'm just getting that little bit of reservation when it's like I go look at the news sites and it's like they're just releasing like top 10 lists and top this and that. Like it's not actual news, so I'm like, come on, get some new stuff going. I want to get excited about something right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some amazing games to talk about, but before we do, Adam, we got another sponsor we got to talk about. Tell the people about them.
We do. So this week's game segment is brought to us by Asterion Products. Asterion offers high-quality universal VR headset stands. A lot of the hosts on our podcast have them, and we love them to death. They have full RGB lightings and a sleek, minimalistic look. It really fits in with whatever setup you have. And personally, I love seeing my headset on this sweet RGB setup right next to my PC. You can get $5 off your order, and you can get $5 off any order, $19.99 or more, by using the code FULLDIVE at AsterionProducts.com. So let's jump in. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, we need to figure out how to get Kayleigh one over in Europe, because mostly Asterion ships to the US, but we gotta make it happen. I don't even know if you've seen one yet. I probably should have told you, sent you some pictures, because they're like these little clear plastic acrylic RGB stands, and any VR headset fits on them. Yeah, you've probably seen them on my Instagram.
I follow them on Instagram. Yeah, they look so cool. I think as well, like they match everyone's vibe. I've noticed that in VR, everyone has those LED neon type rooms. It's so cool, but it's I think they would really stand. I really want one purely because it would contrast with my studio setup, just because mine said my taste here is quite retro and old-fashioned, and I have quite an eclectic wall of gold and ornate frames. So I think it'd look really cool amongst all of that to have I like contrasting, I have a witchy aesthetic at home, and contrasting that with with those stands for the headsets on the wall would be really cool.
You could put it on red, maybe, and that would kind of throw a red kind of creepy glow with your witchy aesthetic or
whatever describing. That sounds cool. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk more about making that happen. But Kayleigh, you aren't much of a huge gamer. You do more creation, more art, and we got you into a game, even if it was for a short amount of time. I would love for you to tell our audience what this game is from your perspective. Tell them about Township's Tale.
Well, so from what I've experienced so far, I didn't actually get into the thick of the game, to be honest. A lot of it was the setting up phase and the tutorials trying to get through. I think because I was trying to get through it quicker as well, maybe that added to, the impatience of the situation. But generally, my first initial reaction when I first got in there, I suppose, was that everything looked pretty, well established. It was just actually getting in. I mean, the setup thing, I don't know whether that was a physicality thing to do with my end, or that was it. I just feel like it took a long time to get in there, but I feel like once you're in there, I think there is a lot going on and there's a lot to do, so you'll never run out of things to do in there. At least there's that.
But that's an interesting question. So what actually do you do in Township Tale? Jay, would you mind giving us a 5-minute rundown of this game? Because it's been out for quite some time, hasn't it?
I guess it's been out on PC for a long time. It just launched on Quest. I guess it's an MMORPG. I use that term loosely because I don't really feel like I know, but it's a world of online players. You have hunger, you have health, you have these different bars you have to keep filled because it's kind of a survival game. But you get in and you can meet other people, you can trade items with them, you can build, craft all kinds of stuff, weapons, backpacks, food, all kinds of different tools. It's kind of like a more fantasy based Minecraft, I guess you could say, because there's a lot of people. You're not usually alone or in a small group. It's like you're in a town of people, and then you can venture out of that town and go mining and bring back resources and materials to trade with the town and build up your stuff together. But it is intense. I would almost call it more of a real life simulator than a game, because this isn't some game where you're pointing at a tree chopping down. You're literally taking physically hard, like 20 swings to knock a tree down with an axe in your hands. And then you're like, okay, the tree's down. Now I got to chop it up into bits. Like, it is almost work to play this game in that way, because nothing is like point and click. It is all physical. If you had a treadmill that you play this game on, it would literally be like real life. It's not, there's nothing about this that is gamey to me. It's extreme.
And Kayleigh, what did you think about that? Yeah,
I completely agree. I did get this like initial, I mean, even like in the menu itself, like obviously in VR, your menu is like a spatial design rather than it being like a 2D thing. But even so, like usually you have sort of like the laser pointer scenario in like most things, but even the menu itself, like before you've even like got to the hard work and the sort of like all of that, like you're already like physically, everything is like physical, like to do anything
and stuff to grab,
like levers, like everything that you're doing is you have to physically grab it and like move your body like constantly. And then once you get in there, then you're like, you have to like do all these, like, I don't know, it's just like, I suppose it's quite repetitive. The tutorial anyway, obviously I can't say what the actual, once you get in there, I mean, I'd be sweating by that point, I think, because there is a lot to do in the tutorial. It's like, I think there was a lack of direction. I think initially for me anyway, some people might be quite good at just being like things being quite self-explanatory to them, but obviously I had like your help, Jay. Hearing someone who's already like been there, done that, this is what you have to do, that's like definitely helps, even if it was like simply the instructions were like, I don't know, I suppose there were instructions, but it was more elusive. And
yeah, we all ran into this problem. Well, this is something that we all ran into, is that they technically offer a tutorial area, but even the tutorial area doesn't have a tutorial. It just throws you in and doesn't let you leave until you've accomplished these tasks. And I feel like this game is a lot like the early days of Minecraft, if you remember that. Like, Minecraft now is a little bit better and offers a tutorial and helps you like learn to craft things. Early days of Minecraft, it just threw you into this world and is like survive or die, and then you just like had to.
Well, that's what I said to you,
felt
Jay.
A lot like that. Yeah.
I literally said that. I said Minecraft survival mode instantly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, from back in the day.
And it feels a lot like that, where you really have to get help by either asking people around you, and there are a lot of friendly people, let me tell you. Or you got to like go and watch a 5-hour YouTube tutorial just to even know how to get around the tutorial world. Like, it's really in depth and there's a lot of stuff to do. But let me tell you, it is not friendly for a newcomer. But I feel like once you get into it, it has the depth to keep going once you get used to the game. I mean, Jay and I were able to get into a world after we managed to slog through the tutorial area. And we found a lot of friendly people that were helping us do things that I didn't know were possible in a game like this, honestly, where we're talking full on smithing. And you had to get all these different ingredients that people had left in community bins, throw them in, get a template. And this guy literally was showing him how to forge this battle axe. And that was amazing to me, that there could be a game with so much depth.
Yeah, it's not. And so, like, imagine if you played Minecraft out there, you kind of have an idea. Like in Minecraft, you see a little 3x3 grid and you put 3 pieces of iron in the top and 2 sticks in the middle, and it becomes a pickaxe. This game, you got to go find a big, huge, fiery forging cauldron, and you got to find a blueprint you want, attach that blueprint to it. So it says, okay, put 8 pieces of iron in to make just the head of your battle axe. Then you got to go to the side, you got to open the slot, dump your pieces of iron in the side, close the slot, and then like wait for this thing to forge. You pull it out, then you got to go heat it in the fire. You got a hammer, and guess what? You've got the head of your battle axe created, not the handle, nothing else. That is just the head. This is that intense of a game.
And then you need to go sharpen it, and you need to like pound it into place with your giant smith and hammer.
Jeez.
Like it is a really involved process. Just making the head of his battle axe took like, what would you say, like 15 minutes? And it was
probably
intensive
because we didn't know what we were doing. But even if we had, I feel like it would have took still probably 3 to 5 minutes if I totally knew how to do it. There was just that many literal steps. And that was, I had luckily found bins there in this because we went to like a beginner community of iron. I would have had to go pickaxe some iron out of a cave if I had wanted to make this myself, bring it to somewhere, smelt it into these little bricks, and then go through this process. So it is.
Imagine, geez, you just made me think. Like, imagine working 9 till 5 and then having to go in there and like work tomorrow. I want to get paid for doing this. I'd like, if I'm going to be doing all this, I want to see some money. Like, that's a lot. I was sweating from the tutorial. I mean, to be fair, it's quite warm today, so it might have been that. But it's physical. Yeah.
It is, and you got to stoop over to grab, so there's no crouch button, so you have to play this standing, which offers a whole problem of accessibility issues. At least, again, I've only played about 2 or 3 hours, so keep in mind, this game's so intense, I might be wrong. There might be options I don't know that I didn't find. But to all of us who played, it seemed like you had to stand and play, you had to physically bend over to pull rocks out of the ground. Like, I was getting tired. You have to find an axe to chop down a tree, and you are just realistically swinging this thing to chop down this tree. It is like you have been taken out of your life. You've been transported to, I don't know when the heck this takes place, like the 1300s, and you are literally trying to survive that world with the real world amount of work it's going to take to do it. It is, if you like this would be amazing. I feel like this is like everything people want. They want this realistic level of interacting with other people and creating these objects and getting through these worlds and fighting the enemies, but it is so much work to get there. You better not think that you're going to get in this game in 2 hours, know what you're doing. I would say you'd take 10 hours to even have an idea what you're doing in this game.
Yeah.
I know, and at that point at that point is the realism too much? Like, I'm all for jumping into 13th century Europe, right? But I mean, I was in there and I was expecting to die of dysentery at any moment, you know? Like, I don't want that kind of realism in my games. Or at least offer some kind of direction in game, so I don't need to go and watch a YouTube tutorial to figure out how to play the game, you know?
Yeah. Even so, I feel like I was more tired from doing those tasks than if I did the same task in real life. I wouldn't feel.
I see you've never tried to chop a tree in real life. Let me tell you.
Like, I used to do. I don't know. I just think I used to build like little. I used to try and build like tree houses with my brother in the woods. It's like I'm pretty sure I wasn't. I was ready to like pass out in that game. I feel like in real life. In real life, it's not. I don't know whether it's because you're having to like, you're doing. I think we forget as well, being VR users, that we're actually doing a lot as well as what we're doing in VR. So, as in right now, obviously you're wearing a headset. We're being like desensitized to the fact that we're wearing a headset and that you have like lesser peripheral vision, and then like having to grip at the same time of like holding the controller. So maybe I don't know whether subconsciously it feels like more work, and because everything is like technically out of depth, like it's not really. I know we are saying it is realistic because we're doing a lot more than we usually have to do. Like it's usually like everything's there on like a silver platter, but like I feel like it is. I swear it's like more tiring than if I did the same exact motion in real life. If I was picking a stick off the ground, I just felt like it was way more tiring in there.
Yeah. That is a good point.
It's an amazing potential of a game, but it's releasing now for $10 on Quest, or it's free on PC, but you can buy cosmetics. So like for releasing on Quest for a price, I feel like that it's $10 is a low price, and it's an amazing amount of work has gone into it. But if you spend $10 thinking this is a done game, you're going to just jump in and play it, be prepared. You're going to be spending so much time learning the game, you might not even make it through the tutorial and actually play the game. You might get frustrated and stop short of that. So be prepared to commit yourself to this if you're actually going to do it.
But at the same time, if you're one of these players that is really looking for a game with near infinite depth, where you can go in and really learn the systems and really, honestly, if you really wanted to live in this game, I honestly couldn't think of a better game, because this game has so much depth to it that I feel like if you loved this concept, you could really lose yourself in this game.
Yeah, you've gotta be there. We played a little bit with Lepnox, one of our other hosts who isn't here tonight, and like he was saying though, he definitely had a much less exciting experience with it. He said if it wasn't for the fact that we were waiting for him in the world and like gonna play together, he would have given up before even finishing the tutorial. and he's someone who actually enjoyed Orbis, which is kind of a similar game along at least the same vein that we played way back in the day. He enjoyed Orbis, and we kind of did not enjoy Orbis. So it's definitely if you're into MMORPGs, you might really get into this game and go for it. But me, someone who doesn't really play those games, I felt so lost, and I can appreciate that the game offers a lot. But beyond this week of checking it out, I don't see myself going back and playing this ever again.
And that's fair.
Kayleigh's never going to go back to even finish the tutorial, I don't think.
I don't know. Now I feel like I want to I want to at least get through the tutorial to have like a valid like experience. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
you can finally say, "Suck it, game! I beat your tutorial."
Yeah, and I'm not gonna go back in. Yeah.
Well, and the frustrating thing there too, like we're spending a lot of time on this, I know, but it's a very intense game. In most MMORPGs, at least in the beginning, you can get in with your friends and struggle together. This game has servers and you can get in with friends, but in the tutorial stage of the game, the very beginning, it doesn't seem like, unless you randomly match with them, it doesn't seem like you can get in the same tutorial together. So I was on a party with Kayleigh, talking her through it while I was walking around my own tutorial world so that I could see what she was seeing, but I could never physically get there with her, which would have made it a lot easier to help her get through it and get into the game.
Jay and I were able to randomly stumble into the same tutorial world, and let me tell you, that made the experience 10 times better.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
Hey, Township Tale, go get it if you have a PC and it's because it's free. Just to literally experience what we're talking about in the tutorial, I would say that's at least worth trying and seeing the work that's gone into this. If you're on Quest, I would only spend the 10 if you kind of know what you're getting into and you like these kind of games. Yeah, what do you guys think? I feel like that's worth it.
Yeah, I feel like we can end up right there. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cool. I think so.
Well, we've got a very exciting experience, whatever you want to call it. It's not necessarily a game, but Kayleigh, tell our listeners about a music video that you had a big part in helping create.
Yeah, so earlier this year, I was approached by Luke Thompson. We actually had a mutual contact to begin with, so that was quite nice. He approached me because he's actually the lead singer of his band, The Murderers. And yeah, so basically, because Luke already works in VR, this is not random, he wanted a VR artist to create sort of captivating, immersive artwork for the video. And the vibe that he was going for was this sort of like futuristic, nostalgic aesthetic. So very like synthwave, vaporwave visuals. You know, where it's very like, I mean, if you watch the video, it will completely make sense. But it's sort of like vapor. If anyone's seen like vaporwave visuals, it's got like a certain color palette to it, and like the brushes that I use are very like neon, and there's a lot of like animated brushes going on. But it kind of adopts this like retro futuristic aesthetic, which I love. Is that combination of like the past and the future, and yeah, it kind of like hones into the like themes of the song as well, and the vibe generally that the music's going for. But yeah, the song's amazing. The song's called Save Yourself. And yeah, Luke said that he definitely wanted like VR art, and I was obviously working in Tiltbrush. I think obviously he'd seen my work and it kind of made sense with what I've done before. And it was just a really cool process because the final intended result was the like a conventional music video for YouTube. I think Luke liked the idea that in the future it would be like a virtual experience people were able to go into. But even like creating just the YouTube video itself, it was a really exciting experience because it's a bit different, like creating a music video like that is it for someone else's music and not for my own like track or cover or whatever. So I really liked the direction that I was given, and the process was really interesting because in the video, like if you watch it, it kind of has this very like linear structure to it. Well, it appears to be linear, but behind the scenes in Tiltbrush, I actually made it was actually like a big ring. I think we called it ring, a wheel, the circle.
Oh,
But basically, the landscape itself is not flat. It's actually like a ring, like this, and the world curves around with the ring. So when Luke took it into Unity and like set his camera pathways, the camera is I can't remember if he sent the camera around. I think the camera's still in the. We had this idea basically that the ring, you wouldn't see some video obviously, but it's more for that capturing that perspective, the private perspective, because basically we wanted in the background there would be this instead of like a skybox, it's like this still image in the background, and then which would stay the same. So the skyline would stay the same and the landscape would move like this.
no.
So you made the world spin and the camera stays still. I can't remember if that's eventually what happened in the end, because I don't know technically if that's. I mean, we might be like, yeah, we did. That is what I did. Or I can't remember. But yeah, that was basically because it was hard. It's harder for me in Tilbury to make like a really flat landscape, because you kind of lose like all the peripheral. I'd have to be like making like this like detailed landscape forever, whereas like with that we could kind of manipulate the perspective, and it just kind of was like way easier for me to just have this continuous flow, because it meant that each like section of the song like blended well into each other. But yeah, it was just a really exciting project for me, because we had such a good flow like back and forth, and the final result I think we're like both really happy with, and we've had such a good response. So it adopts this like retro futuristic aesthetic, and Tilbury I think is perfect for that, and it was just so fun to work on. And then Luke managed to get it released on App Lab, so now you can actually go inside the Tilt Brush world, and you will move with the environment. So it's kind of like you're like in a position of where the camera is on the YouTube video, and you can kind of he is like singing, and like Luke the lead singer is like singing in front of you, and it's really it was a really exciting thing for me to like be inside it, because this is kind of like a massive confession for me, but I don't actually personally, when I create my music videos, I don't test my music inside the artwork, because it never gets released. Nobody ever sees it in VR, which is actually really sad. I am working on that to be a thing, but because they're just going on YouTube, I've never actually tested. Oh, does the song match the world when you're inside VR? Like, does it feel immersive? Like, because in my head it does. I think, oh, surely it'll match. But
yeah, so this must have been entirely different for you to go in and experience it in VR. What did you think that was like?
Yeah, well, it was just. I thought it was a little bit emotional for me, really. I was like so excited about it when he said that. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get it on the App Store, so people can go inside your artwork like that. Ironically, it's so funny, but a lot of people don't see my artwork in VR, so that was really exciting for me. And that's like the first one, I think. Yeah, that's the first VR music video where it's been accessible via VR for me, which is. It's just insane, really. So it's kind of inspired me as well to like sort my videos out so that they are like places that you can actually visit. So I'm actually like thinking of trying to curate that myself as some sort of app. So it's actually inspired me and motivated me to like sort out my own music videos as well. But yeah, it was a really fun experience, and I totally recommend trying it out because it's free on App Lab. So it's literally like an immersive music video, so you get to step inside the video that's on YouTube.
Yeah, I experienced it today. I wanted to do it first in VR, and I also let Natalie, my wife, experience it. So you built the environment, but you weren't necessarily brought into choose like how does the environment flow as the music goes on, how is the music represented. You really built the environment, and then they kind of handled the rest of the stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Luke himself, because he's a developer, he like constructed the sort of the like he sorted the camera. Like you can do that in Tiltbrush and set the camera and everything, but the way that we wanted to do it would have been too hard with having that stationary skyline. It just worked a lot better in Unity, and plus like Luke is putting a lot more like filters and things like that over the top, so actually the video as well isn't like they're not unedited videos from Tiltbrush. They do have like retro like film aesthetics on top, like vibe on top. So it was just easier for Luke to do that himself and control like how we wanted that to look.
Okay. So both Natalie and I tried this in VR, and then I went back to experience it flat to see what that was like as well. It was missing some of the cool things of VR, though, because when you first get into VR, you like standing in front of this big old CRT TV, and there's a VHS tape off to the side, and you like grab that tape and you put it in the VCR, and then it like slowly pulls you into the TV. Like the music video starts on
so
TV.
Cool.
Yeah, it starts flat like it does on YouTube, but then it pulls you slowly into the TV. And then all of a sudden, once you're all the way in, you're in this 360 environment where it's moving. And you also, when you move your hands, there's these two highlighted neon, I don't know what you'd call them. They like leave a trail behind them. They're like these markers that fly through VR, and you can kind of almost draw on the environment as you're moving through with your hands. That was probably pretty cool for you to see, Kayleigh, because I was guessing that wasn't something that you were doing. You were making the environment. So now all of a sudden it had this like art thing that you could do along with it.
I thought that was a really nice feature. Luke, literally, it was kind of more of a surprise, the VR experience for me. Because once I'd done like my job, like Luke was busy like doing all of that. So I really liked that feature. I just wasn't really expecting I didn't know like what he was going to do with it. I didn't know whether you would just appear in it and then it would just start and you'd start moving forward like, where am I? But I thought it was such a good idea to like be going inside the TV. It fits so well with the overall like vibe and like the sort of the style of the song, and everything was just like, I don't know, like aesthetically I was like, oh, this is so nice, it's so good. Yeah, I really like that feature with I liked how they disappeared. I think it wasn't like a permanent, it was more whimsical than that. It wasn't really like you were meant to be drawing or anything. It just kind of made you like move along to the music, and it made you feel like you were like vibing in the environment. I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's something that I was completely missed out on because I was only able to view it flat because I don't have an Oculus device. But it sounds like actually having that music video in VR adds so much to the experience.
Yeah, I think it does make it. I kind of reminded me actually like why I make my artwork in VR as well. I think it was a really nice like reminder and motivator that this is why I paint in VR. Like it just makes a massive difference being able to like be inside the experience that is sort of like materializing the song. I don't know, I really like that idea that like the song exists in a certain place and that in itself is like one whole thing rather than the song being separate to the environment. That might be me being like a massive nerd, but I really like that idea.
There needs to be more VR music videos. And if you're out there and you're hearing, wow, this sounds so cool, go to the show notes, go to the YouTube channel. We'll make sure there's a link to the actual video on YouTube and to the App Labs side quest, aka whatever you want to call it. That is Oculus Quest devices only. You can't, I don't think there's a way, there might be a hacker way that I don't know about, but you got to have a Quest if you want to see it in VR, at least for now. We'll make sure that's in there so that you can go check it out, see this, and come back and tell us what you thought of it, because I think we all had a blast checking it out, right?
Yeah, that would be brilliant if anyone can see it, yeah.
And speaking of our show notes, we'll also have a link to our Discord server. You can go in and be able to chat with us, ask us questions on the Q&A section, and overall tell us what you thought of all of our other links and the things that we talked about on the show, including the amazing music video that we were just discussing. You can provide suggestions to influence what games we talk about and play each podcast, and talk with our amazing community about all things VR. If you're listening to our podcast, consider checking out our YouTube channel, and vice versa. If you are on YouTube, consider taking us on the go with any one of your favorite podcast providers. But as always, thank you so much for listening. And remember, when it comes to VR, you have to dive on in.